And we are back. How the hair are you? This is Dr. Crystal Porter, and I am joined with my in-studio guests. We have Miss Maryam and we have Keisha, and they are both licensed cosmetologists or hairstylists. And Miss Maryam is also an educator. So we were talking on the other segment about heat damage and how you can alter the structure of the hair. So one of the things that I also wanted to add to that conversation, and our segment is going to be approximately 15 minutes-ish, but I wanted to talk about how when you apply enough heat where you alter the structure of the hair, there is something when you relax the hair that happens. It's a byproduct of relaxing, and it's called lanthionization. And basically it is where you're forming something called lanthionine. And that is present when you have altered the structure, and that can happen when you have high heat to the hair. So many people who choose to straighten their hair when it's in its natural state and you leave it permanently straightened, you can, what we call, form lanthionine. And that is something that is just like you have a relaxer. So many people who feel that their hair is more healthy in its natural state, they aren't always doing themselves justice or doing what they think they're doing in terms of keeping their hair healthy, quote unquote. And you just need to be aware that you can do a lot of damage, just as though you have a relaxer. So,
and what Crystal was saying before we left our last segment is that the temperature on the tool that you're using, sometimes it doesn't need to be that high. Just because you see smoke does not mean that it's working. Just as it's true that just because it's burning, the relaxer is working. It's like you need to test it. You need to start off at a low setting just to see what your particular hair can take to get the result that you're looking for, which leads me into the idea of bone straight Crystal talked about earlier, is when you're blow drying your hair, knowing, and I'm talking about natural and relaxed hair, when you're blow drying hair, period, knowing that you're going to use another hot tool, the idea is not to over straighten the hair. Now, we know that we like our hair to last. We want our hair to stay straight for at least, a week or so. But your first process should be the milder one, and then if you're going to apply a second dose of heat to it, you can try the temperature lower and then increase as you go, as opposed to starting it off at the highest and feeling like that's the only option. Even when we go into reheating, restyling your hair, I mean, things happen, it rains, it does a lot, where your hair is not as appealing as it once was when you first shampooed it. If you use the heat tool to straighten your hair initially, know that you don't need the same power to restyle your hair. You can turn your flat iron down. And so going into, I don't want to ramble on, but the two things kind of coincide when you're talking about the integrity and the health of the hair. When we go into relaxers, Crystal mentioned the Egyptians. Well, if you get a relaxer in the Egyptian shop, they're still using the same method to blow dry and style your hair as they do someone with natural hair. So you guys that are sitting in the waiting chairs waiting for your service to be done, that's something that you should be aware of, is that, does my hair need that much? If I'm permanently straightening my hair, I certainly don't need as much power as someone with natural hair. And your natural sisters, if someone is getting a relaxer, why do I get the same exact treatment as a person in knowing that my hair is natural? That's something that kind of will spark a curiosity to me. So just be aware of the practices that's used in those salons. You want to add something, Keisha?
And you know what? I feel healthy hair, it's okay to have some texture left in the hair, to create movement in that body that we want. So when we over straighten or over process our hair, we lose that body and that fullness. So that's why I go back into using too much heat. It's okay to have some texture left behind. We don't have to go bone straight each and every time.
So when you're using texture this time, you're actually talking about the degree of curl.
Correct.
Exactly. And so think about the first time. If you guys can think about the first time you may have gone to a salon and you weren't used to really getting your hair straightened or blown out or whatever, it may have had the most body that you've ever experienced. But over time, with continuous practices doing the same routine of overheating your hair, you're actually, in my terms, I would say you're melting the hair shaft to be a certain limpness. It's not even moving like it once did, and you can't even, as a consumer, you might not be able to identify what's going on with your hair. And what I've noticed with my own clients is that their hair behave, natural girls' hair behave like it's relaxed because their ends are super straight, but the roots are still puffy, meaning they're overheating the bottom layer, you know, the bottom portion of your hair to, because that's where the style comes from. That's where the iron's been, at the bottom of the hair. So they're going over that portion of your hair over and over again, where all the new hair at the roots, you know, it's kind of left alone, and that's the more coarser part of the hair. So when you feel that a stylist is doing that, that's a red flag moment. And I'm gonna go right into relaxing the hair bone straight. Like most of the No-lye relaxers that we get from the store, it's kind of the same concept. Your hair is so slick after you use those kits at home, because the product that it's made up of leaves a coating on the hair, and this is my my theory, because I used to be an at-home relaxer. Before I became a stylist, I was doing my hair at home, trusting the kit, trusting that it'll give me the results that I wanted. But I noticed that over time, the hair looks drier. Nothing will moisturize it, and in my doing hair and noticing that some of my clients come in with this cast on their hair, I found that it's a mineral deposit that comes from that Nola Relaxer and what it's made of, which is the guanidine hydroxide, with calcium being one of the components to make up the relaxer. It's over time starts to coat the hair, and if you don't cleanse it well, which a good thing for you guys to keep in mind is when you're doing your hair at home yourself with the kit, and your shampoo stays pink, you shampooed it 100 times and it's still pink, something is still in the hair. And sometimes, and this is probably just my theory, but it's something hindering you from actually getting all that chemical out of your hair. So over time it starts to shed and becomes thinner and thinner, whereas sodium hydroxide, some say that it's better for the hair because it leaves a little bit of texture. Your hair is still moving, it's not flat to your scalp, and the neutralizing shampoo that goes along with sodium hydroxide, it actually is chelating the hair, meaning cleansing it and getting all the residue out of the actual hair shaft, preparing it to receive something new. And it's not to say that it's not breaking down the protein. Both products break down the protein in the hair, but you just got to be careful on how you cleanse after and what those components that are used to make up these products and how they will benefit your particular hair. Some people are good candidates for No-lye relaxers because they have scalp issues, and some say that lye relaxers are better. But to me, as a professional, if I'm preparing your scalp to receive anything, I'm capable of using either on your hair to get the result I'm looking for.
Okay, so I have a lot to say.
I've said a lot. I know I go on.
That's okay. I just want to, give the scientific perspective, and hopefully I'm going to use terms that people will understand. So when you talk about No-lye relaxer, a lot of people, like in particular, a lot of professionals and stylists, they'll say a calcium relaxer. Mm-hmm. And that really isn't the proper way to describe what the relaxer is, because the calcium is a component of the relaxer, because when you have the mix or the no-lye, so when you're buying the kitty perms, when you are buying the kits, and you have the two-part that you have to mix, you have the solid and then you have the liquid and you stir it up. That is calcium hydroxide being mixed with guanidine carbonate. Mm-hmm. And when you mix it, it turns into guanidine hydroxide, which is the active ingredient that straightens the hair. Mm-hmm. And the byproduct of that is the calcium hydroxide. So when you say calcium, the calcium carbonate is what's left after you have the guanidine hydroxide that's made. So when you have that, The guanidine itself is a strong base, meaning that it has a high pH itself, and it also helps to denature the hair as well. So you have two things. You have the hydroxide, which is the active ingredient that is in both lye and no-lye relaxers. That's that hydroxide, that base. But then you have the guanidine that also helps to denature the protein. So in actuality, you have two things acting against the hair in a no-lye relaxer. You have the guanidine and the hydroxide.
Yes.
So there are people who say, oh, it gets the hair straighter, and it does.
It does.
We have research that we've done in very controlled environments in the laboratory where we have definitely shown that it does get the hair straighter. However, you need to know, because you don't feel the burn, because it is more for sensitive scalp, you have a tendency, especially when you have non-professionals using it, to leave it on the hair longer. So not only is it going to get the hair straight if you leave it on, like, I'll say 15 minutes, because the recommended time for relaxers can range anywhere from 10 minutes all the way up to being recommended to 25 minutes. So you want to make sure that if you do a comparison, you're comparing the same time. So a no-lye relaxer left on the hair for 15 minutes is going to get your hair straighter than a lye relaxer being left on the hair for 15 minutes. But that is equating to a compromise in the integrity of the hair.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately, you have more lanthionine, and that's something that I was saying in the other segment, which is a byproduct of relaxing the hair, and you form this lanthionine. And it, unfortunately, when you have higher levels of lanthionine, you also have higher levels of damage. And so you have to be extremely careful, especially when it's over the counter and in the hands of people who can do all types of stuff to their hair. But also, it's in the kiddie perms.
Yeah.
So you can do a lot of damage to children who are getting these relaxers. And I am convinced that if before this was something that you could do in the salon, and you were doing the conch, because that's the old term that was used when you relax the hair with red level dye and your eggs. And so when they were doing it back then in kitchens, there wasn't like any stringent regulations on it. And by default, it went into it fell into the cosmetic industry. But I know that if this is something that had to be approved, like now, because like I said, by default, it's considered a cosmetic, it would not be considered a cosmetic because it can do too much harm. And if you have the potential of you have this formula that you have the potential of doing a lot of damage to people and their scalps, it is no way that it will be approved.
Yeah, and then
nowadays,
too, people have to consider too it's this natural wave that everybody feels like relaxers can be bad, or they're not great for the hair, period, point blank. I mean, it's people who their lifestyles aren't allowing them to be able to maintain natural hair, so they prefer it. But it's also really strongly based on how you apply it. If a no-lye relaxer is working much faster than a lye relaxer, I would rather use the lye relaxer and have it work a little slower so that I can preserve my hair. And if my scalp is properly based and protected, I can still avoid the burning, because no-lye relaxers can burn as well. And they work faster, they get the hair so straight, which is why people are experiencing the thinning from their hair, because it may be great and land the first time you do it, but over time, that hair shaft lost all its elasticity. You've exhausted all the protein that's in it, so it has no other recourse but to break. And then again, you're going to also blow dry the hair. You're also probably going to pull it in some style, and you're going to use heat on it. So you're compromising it in multiple ways when you rely on not being knowledgeable about it. Because even though some may say it may hurt my business to not, to educate a client, if I know that you're the type that can't afford to come to the salon, but you came to me here and there for a wash and set because that's what you can afford, I am going to tell you to be careful when you're relaxing your hair and give you some tips on how you can avoid over processing your hair. I won't just withhold that information just because you're not coming to me. I care about the consumer, so you're going to remember that and perhaps just choose to not do it at all, because it's more work when you're doing it the correct way. When you're trying to do it yourself and do it quick, most of the time you exhibit some mistakes that's irreversible, and it makes you give up on your own hair care maintenance or whatever. So I'm always going to tell you the right thing to do as far as what I know. Now, I know I don't know everything, but I've experienced a lot myself before I became a stylist, and I've been there and done that, and to the detriment of my own hair. So I'm speaking from experience, not only because I'm a professional, you know. So
Would you like to add to that, Keisha?
Oh, I agree. I have done a lot of damage to my own hair, but like you said, you know, I think of every client, even if they coming in for, you know, install. I don't think every person wants to, you know, wear extensions for the rest of their life. I know a lot of young people, they may do it now, but I know at the end, I always think about further down the road. What if they ever want to wear their own hair? Even if, say for instance, even if, you know, relaxing or color. So it's like you have to take everything in account when it comes to servicing your client. And it, like you said, it goes all consultation. You know, where you're at right now, what would you like to be, and how can I get you there? So how we both can work together and get you there. So
exactly, yeah.
So before we close, I just want to make a couple of clarifications, because sometimes we speak in general terms, like there aren't any variables and formulas. But so I want to say, any comparison that you make with lye versus no-lye, it usually is within the same brand. Because, and you've noticed this as a hairstylist, you'll have one particular relaxer, it responds a certain way, it actually may break the hair down more compared to another brand. So the lye relaxer or the no-lye relaxer formulation across brands can behave differently, because the way they make up the product can really have an effect on how the hair responds to it. So I just want to make let that be known. And let me see, what was another point I was going to make, because the exceptions. We're talking about lye and no-lye comparisons. Oh, and then I also wanted to give credit to the scientist who first, or to my knowledge, he was the first scientist to publish the differences between lye and no-lye, and showing that lye-based relaxers are definitely more detrimental to the hair, and that is Ali Syed. He is a scientist. He makes Avalon products. So he makes the Affirm relaxer. And one of the things that he said that I highly respected when I asked what was his motivation of publishing that no-lye relaxers actually were more detrimental to the hair than lye-based relaxers, I loved his answer. He said that anytime he sells, because he sells lye and no-lye only to professionals, and the one thing that he said was he wanted his stylists to be educated on what they were working with. So even though most people believed and still believe, unfortunately, that lye relaxers are better, he said he wanted to arm his stylists with the knowledge so that they can do what was best. And because some people do have a sensitive scalp, he wanted to let them know, okay, this is in your hands and you can do more damage to the hair, so just use it with this knowledge and do what's best for the hair. So I loved his response, and we need more responsible scientists who are willing to educate no matter what the results are.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a distinctive difference between the two, but that's the ultimate thing, is knowing how to use each of them, whichever your choice is, just knowing and taking precautions to keep your hair in the best health or whatever. The idea is to keep your hair healthy with whatever you're using, whether we talked about extensions today, we talked about ponytails today, now we're talking about chemicals, we talked about naturals getting their hair blown out. It's just the proper way to approach everything. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, it means taking a little more time out just to do it the right way and get it right the first time, instead of having to do all this backtracking to repair something that sometimes is irreversible.
All right. So As you can see, we're probably past the time, but I don't see my relief coming in, so that's my excuse to go over a little bit. But we are going to have to end the show, but I do want to give you an opportunity to give your credentials and let people know how to contact you. So, Keisha?
Yeah, well, my name is Keisha. Like I said, I'm a hairstylist. I also have my bachelor's in project management. I'm also part of an awesome new company, first ever mobile application for people of the beauty industry, which is called Lisa. So actually, I can be located at the lisaapp.com.
Can you spell that?
It's lisaapp.com. So lisaapp.com. It's like I said, we just launched this year, and it's a mobile app that provide on-demand service to clients in the Illinois area.
Okay.
So a client can reach a stylist and get their hair done where they are with the app.
Whenever, whatever, at the time that, it's an on-demand, actually what it is, it provides on-demand service for either if you want the stylist to come to you or you visit a salon. So it's like I said, it's the very first ever, we call it the Uber app for hairstylists. For not just hairstylists, people in the beauty industry as a whole. You can request service, and within an hour you can just go on the app, and within the hour you can find list of styles that's available at the price range that you're willing to pay. So, like I say, you can go on our website and learn even more about the app.
And you're under the name of Keisha, that's it?
Yes, well, Keisha Wright.
So can you spell that?
Mine at Kesha, and last name Wright, WRIGHT.
Thank you for that. And Maryam, quickly?
I can be reached at www.missmaryam.com, and you can contact me via my website, and also find me on Facebook, Maryam Hair Care Pro, and on Instagram, Maryam, MARYAM, at Instagram.com.
Thank you. And thank you to the listeners, and for those on Periscope, thank you so much. Don't forget those hearts, really appreciate it. And next week we'll be on at the exact same time on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I just want to let people know, we hit on this a little bit in one of the earlier segments, but really talking about self-esteem and making sure that you do things to your hair. If you make educated decisions on what you are doing, that's really what this show is about, to make sure that we talk about topics that are relevant to you, but to educate you so that you can know what your options are. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to do something that you hear may not be good for your hair, just know that there are consequences, and you just really need to empower yourself to make sure that you can be the best you possible. And with that, we are going to go into Queen Latifah, ladies first, because you are definitely first. And as always, take care and love your hair. Thanks again. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.